Mr. Colin Ebsworth. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me. Like I said before, this is a wild setup. I am really impressed.
I'm glad. Have you been on many podcasts?
Yeah. There's a few around Perth. The Hard Yarns boys, Mission Control. They've got a really nice setup, but this is wild.
Hard Yarns is like the comedy focused one, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's these two guys, Daniel Delby, a really great comic and freestyler, and so I'm just coming to another guy's ad to be like, you know what else is cool?
Yeah.
Other people's products.
That's all right. No.
And Cameron Branch, who's a great videographer, and he's trying his hand at stand-up as well. So yeah, they interview everyone though. They have, me on one week and then a sex therapist the next week, and then whoever they had Blair Evans, the Olympian, two-time Olympian on the other day. Yeah.
Wow. I would love to get a sex therapist on this podcast. That'd be a great conversation.
Yeah, definitely. But you talk nothing about sex. You're like, hey, so when it comes to Israel and Palestine, she's like, well, when there's friction, you need to kind of warm up. And she still tries to apply her knowledge to the situation. She's like,
no, you deal with sex, not like geopolitical issues. But thanks so much for coming on, dude. I just wanted to say, like, a friend of mine introduced you to your comedy stuff a few months ago. And ever since then, like, I've been trying to keep up to date with all your postings, and I think all your fake advertisement stuff that you do is fucking hilarious.
Oh, thank you so much. That started just as a little joke. Just for context, we do a talk show. It's wild. It started this little project where I was like, hey, I've got to get this off my kind of bucket list, and now it's become the biggest live stage one in the country. Which is sick.
Which is Ebsworth Tonight. For anybody listening.
So we do that, the 350 seat Record by Main Hall, every couple of months, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And to break up the segments, where we go from the monologue to the desk, we were like, I'll put in some fake ads. That was something I always liked from the Chasers.
Yeah, of course.
And then we were like, maybe we can animate them and add in stuff. And now people are enjoying that more than the show. So I'm like, all right, at least they're like.
Yeah, I reckon that's probably my favorite style of comedy, with just the absolute piss take of things that come out that are legitimate. Oh
my God, the funnest one to do and the hackiest is, remember The Guide?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Saturdays of The Guide. Come down to the Charles Hotel and maybe die. Like that, I love so much. So we do that every week. We do a government PSA every week.
Yeah, the government ones were funny as well. Like, I think
we did the one about the NBN, right? Yeah. And that got sent to the head of PR for the NBN.
Like, watch this. You need to sort your fucking shit out.
We did one about Basil's Empress, and I was like, okay, we won't put it out, and then I uploaded it, and within 2 seconds our audio producer had tagged Basil in it, and then it'd been seen on his story, and I was like, well, okay, he's
Basil Samplers.
Yeah, he's got to see it anyway. Someone's going to show him in a bathroom halfway through a line and be like, hi, this guy's making fun of you.
Yeah, well, do you have many writers working for you on that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so we've just brought on script supervisor, a guy, Bert Goldsmith, who has worked on so many projects, huge background in comedy, and he's a gun. We also have Aves Robbins, who's a new comic in the scene, but she is fucking crushing it.
Wow.
So she just got to the state finals of Raw Comedy, which is the biggest comedy competition in the country, and she just is funny. It's crazy. You'll get some people with zero background in comedy. I think she wrote for the UWA Pantomime Society, and then all of a sudden she's one of the best joke writers.
So she's had no background in comedy.
No background as she comes in. Wow. But in the least braggy way, everything is, I pretty much do it. I get them to be like, hey, contributions, all the cast and crew, they have ideas, we have sketches and stuff they put in, but it's...
so you're the main writer?
Yeah, so I write the whole show, and then they'll come in with maybe some tidbits and stuff, but... yeah.
Does it feel good to be in charge of your own thing that you can really just project into any way possible?
It's good. Yeah, definitely. So like when you have a full script in front of you, after it's done, you're like, I did this all myself. But right now, we're 2 weeks out from a show, and I haven't written the main big segment, Hot Take, which is like news, and I'm like, I'm kind of fucked.
Is this the 2nd of September show that you're talking about?
Yeah. So we got our next one coming up there, and it's like selling really well. So I'm like, this is good, but you think
haven't even written the main bit for it yet.
Yeah, you'd think you get less pressure, but this is just the bit that I put the most amount of like intensity towards, because this bit kind of has to bookend with this, and it's the part where I actually get to say something, which you don't really get to do in Australian comedy. Yeah, the amount of times I've done bar gigs and people will be like, shut the fuck up and talk about the difference between Coles and Woolies, you dog. So like you got to kind of do that with Australian audiences. But with this, it's like, nah, they've come here to see you and what you say about things.
Well, I don't think there's anybody actually doing what you're doing at the moment, really.
Yeah, I thought about it because obviously, like, we all grew up in Rove, right?
Yeah, I know. That's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. Like, a friend of mine said that Rove actually came up
down. I know, which was what. Like, I mean, we've been hassling him for a long time. We've been hassling him, and I mean, I was just amazed. It was really a miracle because you wouldn't believe this. His management said he was in New Zealand, so I was just amazed that he managed to catch I mean, unless they lied directly to my face.
No doubt.
No, but it's the same thing with any management. I know Kevin Parker's people was like, oh, he's at the Emmys. I'm like, oh, they were a year ago. No, sorry. They said he was at the Grammys, and I was like, that was last month.
Oh, true.
But they're like, yeah, no, he's just he's on a yacht somewhere. And I'm like, no, I can physically see him. He's in Fremantle. He's right there. He's at a used bookstore.
Wow.
But yeah, he came down, and that was sick. So hopefully we can get him to come down again and check it out. Because yeah, he's got everything. He's got the whole production company. I mean, you know, you've got a company yourself. Like Roving Enterprises does everything.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah, so the project is pretty much the closest thing to what we're doing now. But yeah, as far as talk shows, Australia's kind of behind.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, with I'm pretty sure that the Rove, the actual show, ended in like 2009.
2009, yeah. But he brought back Saturday Night Rove for 2 episodes I don't think the 2 episodes were his decision. I think it was Channel 10's decision. But it was just interesting because he came back, and I remember I was watching it recently just to kind of just to compare and see what works and what doesn't relative to our show. And it was still funny. It was good. It was classic Rove. But I think the audience has just moved on. Yeah. We're older. We're all streaming. I have not seen a person under the age of 60 even look at a TV.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And yeah, coming up like into like the early 2000s, into the late 2000s, like that was like the main medium for people to consume that stuff. This is literally
what we're using TVs for now, to put on our own branding behind a podcast. That's like the main thing. It's a stunning 8K resolution. You'll be able to be the next Rogan. Like everyone's like, oh, sick.
Yeah. Like I think because Rove was like the Jimmy Fallon of Tonight shows. And now I don't think I could name a single person who does any show like that now.
So there's like the closest thing is Sean McAuliffe, who I got mad respect for. He's just a fucking veteran pro of comedy. And I think me and him kind of, in terms of the way we approach writing the show, his is obviously of a way better quality. I'm not going to comment that. But the way we approach it in terms of the writing process and what we're actually trying to get at, and say he's got that Mad as Hell show on ABC, which is great. Yeah. So it's more political comedy, and he came up with a fucking good idea. So rather than just having guests, he just has a series of sketch artists, and they come on as whoever. So it's like, hey guys, today we've got the ghost of Gaddafi, and then like they'll just dress up. So like they've actually found a way to circumvent the problem of not having guests in Australia. Yeah. Because if you have 1 month or even a lockdown of 10 months.
You're fucked if you're trying to run a show.
Yeah, the biggest act we have is like, can we get McGowan on, please?
Yeah, wow.
But McGowan, if you're listening, please, we do want you on.
Getting the premier of WA would
it's to the point now,
dude.
We're just doing these, like, we've got a whole series of hashtag Get McGowan sketches and like pranks to kind of try and get him on the show. We were going to have hashtag like Get McGowan put up in skywriting. And then a friend last minute who just graduated as a cop, he's like, that is the dumbest fucking thing. You cannot write in sky letters for all of Perth to see something that is so visibly going to be taken as a threat.
Oh, yeah. Get McGowan.
I put up Get McGown.
Everybody's like trying to like hunt him down and shit.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, it's the big dog McGowan. I just called Dog McGowan. Everyone's just like, who the fuck said this? So we got to be clever though. But we got our co-host on the show is going to be front man of a band called the McGowans, and we're going to see if we can get him to come down to a show.
Do you think sitting him down would actually be, you'd be able to have like a decent conversation, or would it just be so heavily controlled by his PR people?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm worried. If he's like, you know what, that's it. I don't like this 3-day lockdown. And he kicks everyone out. I'm like, we fucked it. No, apparently he is a lovely guy. So the guy we had on the last show, Stuart Aubrey, was is the local member for Scarborough. He's a lovely guy. He total underdog, beat Lisa Harvey.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
In her own seat. And I'm a Scarborough boy, and no one's perfect. So, but I was in there, and it's just such a heavy boomer, like boomer town.
Did he come on to Ebsworth Tonight, did he?
Yeah. So we had him on the last one. He told us some stories about McGowan, and it just made him sound like he's the nicest guy. He's like, yeah, he came up and he fixed my tie. And I'm just can I vote for you again?
Did you vote for McGowan?
No, I didn't. I voted for the Greens.
Because you've done some work with the Greens.
Yeah, yes. I worked I worked as a comms advisor for a member of the Upper House, Robin Chappell.
Yeah. Who's I think mining and
mining pastoral.
Yeah, okay.
So it's the biggest electorate in the world, I think, outside of like there's probably some place in Russia that is just a block of ice, but it's the biggest electorate. It's all the way from it's Kalgoorlie to just above to Geraldton to Port Hedland to like it's just massive.
Yeah, because people forget that Australia is in terms of landmass is almost the same size as Central America.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I've seen the ones where they put on like Australia on top of America, and it's like it's the same size.
Like quite literally the same size.
Yeah. But Americans are like, what? How do they pull that together? Yeah, they're just always surprised about that. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll be the gate working, just cutting you
okay.
out. Yeah, cut it back.
I was like, motherfucker, you're inviting me on a podcast, mate. And he's just like, oh, we're playing the music. I'm like, I didn't even know you did that.
How did you get into comedy?
Just talking shit. That's just all you do. And you're just the class
Like coming up through high school, just like
I was always a
jokes.
drama kid and just bothering the class and everything all the time. And then I was 17 and raw comedy came along, and I was like, oh, I'll give this a go. Had to sneak into the Charles Hotel. And be like, no, I'm 18. I just left my, I left it in another pair of skinny jeans from Cotton On. Left my ID there. No, so I got on.
That's classic. Like, oh, where's your idea? Like, I forgot to bring it.
Yeah.
Like, nah, you're 16 years old.
It's just so funny when you're 18 and you like just get it, and you're like, man, I look so mature. And now, isn't it? Like, how old are you now?
23.
Really?
Yeah, 23 years old.
God, that moustache says otherwise. I'm so envious. I'm so envious. It's a filthy mug.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Big fan.
I try to keep it groomed. It gets a bit out of control sometimes.
Yeah, every day. I can see Cheeto dust from here. It's a good mo. No, I remember I had to you're 18 and you're like, oh, I look so old. And now as 23 and I'm 29 now, you go to a club and you see an 18-year-old and you're just like, did
I really look that dumb?
Yeah, but also that young. It's just like you may as well be on each other's shoulders with trench coats. Like no one is buying that you're an adult. At all.
It is pretty crazy. I remember a couple of months ago, it was Australia Day, and driving down, I think the main street there's like Empire Ave, sorry, and seeing a bunch of kids like wearing the Aussie flag around their necks, having no idea what's going on, like carrying like a carton of beer with them, and like, wow, I used to do that, and I don't remember feeling like I looked like a dickhead.
Do you remember a tour of the fridge? I never remembered the tour of the fridge, but the next day you wake up and just your hands are shredded.
Yeah, just stacking it on your bike.
Yeah, I remember I had a fringe show, I think it was like 5 years ago. We did a tour of the fridge. I fully stacked it, and I'm having to hold the microphone with my hands taped up like this, doing like me for an hour at a fringe venue. Like you couldn't,
Yeah, I think I saw you at a fringe show like a few years ago. That would have been the first time I would have heard about your stuff.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I've done 6 now, so this is 11 years of stand-up. You've
been in stand-up for 11 years. Wow.
Yeah, so it was the first gig when I was 17. I'm 29 now. Oh, it's 12 years. Oh, no.
Reminding you of how the years is to drip
definitely.
away.
Yeah. Anyway, so Colin, tell us about your kids and your successful businesses. I'm like, oh, well, okay. All right. This is how we're going to be done today. Anyway, so I did it. Raw comedy. I recommend anyone who's interested in doing stand-up do that. It's run by the Melbourne Comedy Festival, but they do heats around the country.
RAW, Raw.
Yeah, RAW, and they just do heats, semi-finals, state finals, and they fly you over to Melbourne. So I got to do the Met Town Hall, which I think is like an 1,100-seater.
Wow.
Which is great. Yeah. And that was, but our state final was bigger than their
Dude, 1,100 seats.
Yeah, because they used to do ours at His Majesty's, which is like, so people would come over here and be like, how is yours bigger than the... It's so big, like that the national final for us is the grand final prize for the person who wins Raw Comedy India.
Wow.
So like they get, their big prize is just getting to perform with everyone in the finals of us.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't imagine having to stand up on stage and like rip jokes in front of 1,100. Have you got any like crazy bomb stories?
Oh my God, all the time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, one time I was doing a gig and I was just in a weird place. I was seeing a girl and I was really into it, but you know when you're like, your brain's just totally miles away. So I go out for this like split headline spot at Mojo's, back before that was a problematic place, and I went out there, probably sponsored by Mojo's. Yeah. Oh, maybe we'll put them in the gig guide next time. Yeah, definitely. I went up at Mojo's and I was doing this thing, and the crowd just wasn't liking it. And sometimes you have a weird interaction. Someone will talk and you kind of go after them maybe a bit too hard, but the audience doesn't really understand the interaction. That's why as a comic, like whenever you're on stage and you ask someone a question, like you have to repeat what they said into the microphone.
Yeah, just to make sure you can...
So the audience can hear, because otherwise it just looks like... Because if you're like, hey, something, and they give you an insult and you just go hard at them, all the audience sees is like, hey, why'd that comic flip out?
You're just ripping on somebody. Yeah.
So and sometimes like you'll mishear someone, so they'll just be like, oh, hey, my name is this. And you'll be like, what'd you say? You come to this country.
Do you feel like that's a common mistake that like new novice comics, mate?
Oh yeah, comics always, new guys always have this, because it's the biggest fear is like getting heckled, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of freezing
and
up.
actually not being knowing how to deal with it.
And new comics are always like, because it's their big fear, they're always like, oh, I know what I'll do. And I've seen this happen like hundreds of times. They'll be like, I'll invite the crowd to heckle so I can like I can control the situation. It's like, that's so dumb.
Yeah.
The majority of heckles, like 90+%, are just people interrupting and not realizing they're not meant to. Like that's it.
Trying to get involved when they're truly not there.
Yeah. There's such a small amount that is like, you suck. And then usually if you're in any way decent, the crowd's going to be on your side anyway. So it doesn't matter. Like you can just let them talk it out.
Yeah,
that's it. Like let them screw up. If they've already made a mistake, don't interrupt them by being like, hold on. Here's a pre-practiced remark that I.
Are you a fan of Frenchie? I think he would probably be the king of getting absolutely horrendously heckled.
Well, there's again
or
those
Scooter
guys.
Williams or something like that.
They is it Scooter or Shooter?
Shooter Williams, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was pronounced cancelled.
Butcher, he did get cancelled.
He did. I know. What a dog. Anyway, apparently he's a turd, so I don't really. That's fine. This is going to be. I know. I don't want to be one of those shitty comics who's like bitching and stuff. But
he's
I think
funny.
we can quite frankly.
He's honestly funny.
Yeah, I mean, I was 13 as well at one point, and so I was sick. But no, now it's like, look, there's so many comics that are bringing like actual fucking weapons. They're so good. So for someone to go on stage and be like, "Who says cunt because of me?" and it's like, oh, you pay taxes.
Anyway,
the heckling thing. People always kind of come up with the heckles. The worst gig I ever did, I was doing this one at Mojo's and it was a split headline, and I was just getting nothing. I wasn't like just starting. I was like 5 years in, but I was like, it's so dumb now. I was like, is this what you guys want? You want Monkey to dance?
Dance Monkey.
And then they just went, yes. And then just go dance. And people were throwing money and shit. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? So I just had to be like, hey guys, the next act's a lot better than me. I'm gonna catch you next time.
So what, you just spent the whole time dancing on stage?
No, I'm gonna dance for people at Mojo's. No, I was just like, you can't win them back. I was like, you guys are on rowdy. There's no way I'm gonna. I've seen like amazing pro acts sometimes you start off weird and then you just can't bring it back. But more often than not, and as you get kind of better and grow, you'll be able to figure out how to kind of work with crowds. And then eventually it gets to the point where you just get bored and you start going, hey, what can I do to push them in a direction to see if I can get them back?
Yeah, or you actually see, I guess to try to get them to have a reaction to something.
Yeah, like Patrice O'Neill was like the absolute king of that. And it got to the point where he was that good at stand-up where he would go on with maybe a couple of loose ideas. Never wrote his stuff down. This guy was just an absolute unit at being able to just talk out his thoughts and make it funny, which is like final tier comedy in terms of how to actually write. So you start off at the beginning, everyone's writing stuff down, and you try other jokes until you progress through, and then eventually people can kind of riff and work it into material until you get to final tier, which is like, I thought about this on the way to the bus, like on the bus right here. I'm just going to talk it out with you on stage and find the jokes there, which is like, that's
where you're completely comfortable, like absolutely
I mean,
comfortable
we're talking 20-year pros like Bill Burr's and Seinfeld maybe, like Chappelle and Burr are like. Chappelle definitely. I mean, the guy has a record for 24 hours of stand-up.
Yeah. Like he goes into like random clubs in America and will just like not tell anybody that he's rocking up, and he'll do like a 4 or 5 hour set. Yeah,
actually, I take that back. What I said, Seinfeld is definitely not one of those comics. He writes everything to the T. But Bill Burr and Chappelle specifically. That's why, man, if you ever get a chance, if you guys are comedy fans, go on Conan, and Conan gives more opportunities than any big talk show host to anyone. Like he's just fucking OG. He's so good. And when he has Bill Burr on, Bill Burr would just chat and he'll be like, hey, what do you think about anything? And Bill Burr will just
rant on
30 minutes. He'll let him talk and then he'll cut them up. And every one of these things is like, I don't even know this is stand-up. Like, it's so funny. Yeah. But the way he's delivering it and talking,
so incredibly like hilariously opinionated in so many different ways.
Yeah, but also just affable and conversational. I mean, that's the dream. Like, that's the only, what we talking about heckling before when most people interrupt is because they think it's a conversation. So it's like, do you come up stage and do something that is very clearly rehearsed? Like, here is my joke, here is my...
Or do you relax it a little bit and let it sort of happen to you?
Yeah, definitely. But the thing is, every crowd's different. Perth audience, for instance, a bit more regressed when it comes to comedy. Like, it used to be, Australia was about like 30 years behind in stand-up. Because it started in the 40s and 50s, like really blew up in the 50s with Lenny Bruce in the States, and Australia didn't get it until, a couple of decades later. And then you've got to factor in that we progressed down the same path, maybe at the same speed, maybe slower because we didn't have the comedy infrastructure. There wasn't as many rooms, people, and touring opportunities. So we would just slowly playing this game of try to catch up and couldn't do it. And then the internet came along, and all of a sudden I can look at the pros in Australia and I can look at the pros in America side by side and get a comparison and be like, actually, what are the best in the world doing, not what are the best in Australia doing. So then that just kind of blew up, and now people are able to, people are gaining ground. You're getting a lot more Australians getting on Conan and stuff, doing opportunities.
No, definitely. I think one of the bigger Aussie names would have been like Jim Jeffries or
so Jim Jeffries is great. Yeah. But the reason the reason I bring that up is that the comedy got better, but the crowds didn't necessarily. Like Melbourne, obviously they're going to be a bit more progressive and just artistically a bit more educated, I guess I would say. In Perth, man, Perth has a weird thing with Perth and Brisbane comics.
Yeah.
We're like almost identical. You can take any Brisbane comic and put them straight in because they both people are just like, we are largely like rural.
The same.
Kind of, and we just want joke, punchline. That's it. Punchline. And you go to Melbourne, they're like, hey, here's a story about what it is to feel. And it's just like, yeah, great. Where is the punchline?
Abstract expression.
Like, no, the punchline is something you make up for yourself. And you're like, oh, well, then you just wasted both of our times.
Yeah. Needs to be a little bit more literal.
The project loves it. Very well reviewed. No, that show that doesn't exist, they're just like, I just stop shitting on the project. They're trying his best. I don't trust.
I mean, like I've spent many years shitting on the project. It's hard not to. Really.
Nah, it's all good. I have some friends that write for it though, and so whatever they've written is just amazing. But everything else, I mean, you can't bring Stephen Price onto a show and be like, we want to make sure we get everyone's opinions. It's like,
that's sort of like it's almost like a blatant, like they just have this like not very well spoken conservative person
I was like, dude,
to have a balance.
If I wanted to listen to boomers nonstop, I would listen to any interview that Channel 7's done. They'll be like, kids today are too fat, and we're going to talk to a boomer about it. It's just like police are doing all the. Oh, we'd better talk to a boomer. It's like, this is mental. Like, at what point?
Well, the problem with the project is that it makes it like it's such an easy thing to watch, like because it's so friendly and inviting.
Why is it like that?
Yeah,
because Middle Australia can't handle anything more. Man, Australians have this idea, and this is not my original thought, but I'm like paraphrasing from something, but it's very astute. Australians have this idea that we're chill and laid back, and we are not. There's this idea where the Aussie larrikins, it's like, well, then how come if I make fun of you, you're going to take a swing in the back of my head and try and cow punch me?
No, it is, yeah.
It's very like, I can.
It's an intense culture.
Come on, mate, I'm just joking with it, but don't you fucking make fun of the flag. It's like, well, it's a dumb flag.
Yeah.
It's a quarter of another country's flag. Like, sorry, if I went into a house and then there was a quarter of a smaller house in there, you wouldn't be like, hey, what the fuck is happening here? You're like, no, it's just heritage.
I had a theory about flag designs a couple of weeks ago that I'm pretty sure it almost seems as if every single world flag was designed by the same boring, unimaginative person.
He's like, when's Friday coming?
Like some of these flags are pathetically designed.
3 stripes? Yeah. He's like, I do 3 stripes when I'm feeling a bit spontaneous.
Yeah, like maybe we switch the colours around a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So fucking
but here's the thing, flags 100 years ago, oh shit, they were sick.
Yeah.
Flags were so cool. I think it was like what Thailand used to just create the Japan's rising sun flag, and they're like, no. Let's not go too crazy. White flag, red dot.
Yeah.
Great.
Simplistic.
Yeah, but I don't know, man, because I totally agree. If I was part of the flag designing committee, why be like, hey, those 3 colors? Yeah. What about 4 colors? No. Why wouldn't you do something crazy? Why wouldn't you do something absolutely mental?
I agree.
Like what you have behind you, I think is sick. That as a flag would be wild. Yeah.
That would be very cool.
None of the other countries can copyright it. You never have the instances of like people being like false flag attacks where like they dressed up as Australians. It's like, no, you can't, because every flag is different. Imagine if every flag was like a snowflake and you just like, I don't know where you're from.
Yeah, and this would be because it's inherently Australian, right?
Yeah.
And like if every country designed their flags based off sort of like the indigenous culture or something that was completely unique to that part of the world, like it would have a lot more meaning attached to it.
This is
really
going to blow your brain, but this is something I learned from the guy I was working for, Robin Chappell, who has a huge amount of experience, one of the most knowledgeable people in as an expat as well, one of the most knowledgeable West Australians on mining and even Indigenous culture across a wide variety of groups. Indigenous people didn't create stick drawing, didn't create dot drawing. Yeah. Isn't that wild?
They've just taken it.
It was a Dutch guy in the 70s.
Really?
It was a Dutch, yeah. Because Indigenous culture, they didn't have paintbrushes, right? So they drew everything in the sand. And they did.
You're joking.
No, yeah. I mean, they didn't have, because paintbrushes traditionally came from like horses, and they didn't have horses. Yeah. So they would use their hands for a lot of stuff. And ochre was like, you'd chew it, I think, and kind of spit it out. And that's how you end up with the nice hands and stuff. And then as a way of getting Indigenous people in doing art in kind of a hybrid form that was kind of westernized. And I have no opinion on this. I just hope that they were able to express themselves. I'm not saying like it was okay that someone's like, no, paint this way. It's the only way.
Yeah.
But they didn't really have brushstrokes, so it was like dots. So they kind of emulated what they would do on the sand to tell stories and stuff with that. And if any of you guys don't believe me, please Google it, because I do not want to come across like some white guy being like, "Whoa, did someone say?" For us, Leo. Yeah, did someone say white guy opinion?
Wait, so a Dutch guy in the 70s?
Yeah, it's wild. If you look up when did stick drawing come in, Jamie, can you look that up, please?
Yeah, I do find it difficult to. I'm like, okay, his name's Leo. I can't say Jamie. I can't say.
Yeah,
Jerry.
I know, but how much is that?
I'm like, so do you smoke DMT? No.
Yeah, I know. Oh my god, one of the funniest. I don't know if this is even relevant to the podcast, but I don't know. As a fun question, what's people's favorite YouTube videos? And one of the best ones I've ever seen. Someone edited Joe Rogan to be interviewing Joe Rogan, and
well, they're switching back and
just
forth.
Reversed it, and it was just like funny. The whole thing is just like, you ever do DMT? Yeah. You hear about that 800-pound gorilla that killed someone at the zoo? It's just like, oh, this guy. Someone the other day said that, Joe Rogan is just male Gwyneth Paltrow, and I was like, that is
Gwyneth Paltrow
on the money.
That's classic.
Yeah, just look up stick drawing, or when was stick painting invented, or where did it come from? Was Pakistan invented? Anyway, next question. He's going to do some Googling. Here we are with the next one.
Wow, that is fascinating.
It comes up and it's just like, if Colin is talking shit again, I'm like, Google, you fucked me.
Mole stick?
No, none of the... I don't know what you're looking at.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
The word derives from a German and Dutch painter.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Mousestock painter's stick from Melon to paint 19th century.
So 19th century, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, actually, no, it should have been 20th century, but stick painting, Australia, invented. If this is a 2-second Google.
No, fuck off.
Dot painting, 1970s. Oots.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, and that's the end of the interview. Guys, this has been so good. Thank
Colin
you so
Ebsworth
much for coming out.
For us.
Here we go. Indigenous art. Yeah.
Jeffrey Barden. There we go. Dot painting.
Yeah. Dot paintings from Papunya have become one of the most important phenomena in Australian art. Anyway, the way they were able to do it is incredible. But yeah, Jeffrey Barden. Anyway, I don't know how we got onto that one. Look how grumpy he looks.
That guy's white.
Just like, he looks like the kind of dude who would be like, brushstrokes, not for me.
Yeah, no.
Too ethnic. No. Poke and stick, baby. He's like, are you a boxer? Oh, when the drink's right. What a terrifying man. He's probably lovely.
What was your inspiration behind Ebsworth Tonight? And how long ago did that start?
Oh, man. So it was the weirdest thing. I don't know if you ever had this situation where your entire life was very clearly gearing towards something and you were just running around doing everything but.
To avoid that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, look, I love doing stand-up, but there are clear limits to what the kind of medium can do for me. And I like politics. Like, I'm politically minded. I'm studying that, and I've always found it interesting, but I don't want to be a politician, because after especially having worked in government, you go, oh, this is a lot of stuff that is just shit. Like, it's just shit.
Yeah, a lot of full-time employees is wasting time.
Yeah, but also to be a politician, like, people go, I'll be a politician. It's like, no, majority of them, this is their whole life. And I mean, like, very few friends. We're doing like hugely long days. I mean, there's times when, my boss like wouldn't get sleep properly.
This is a great question, like, because the majority of people, when they think about politicians, they aren't actually quite sure of what politicians do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. And so we get people being like, why aren't you changing this? Why aren't you doing this? And it's like, a great example is like people going, every year, one of the best bit of the Liberals' PR ever. And this is, credit where credit's due. Whoever came up with this, Montebello. Every year when the fire season happens and the Liberals have cut more and more money from the department, both the fire protection services and the management, land management services, so they can't do proper amounts of burn backs, the rumour goes around going, the Greens are stopping the burn backs, which is like mental, right? And people go, Greens, why are you doing this? And it's like, for one, the Greens have never been in power. Like, never. There was a joint government at one point with Rudd, but that was it. They were in a minority government. They could not pass laws. They've never had that kind of decision making. That's purely a state or federal level. But yeah, people just don't know. They go, you were a politician, so you must be able to directly do this. And it's like, you still have to vote. You still have to draft these laws. It takes so long. So my guy that I was working for brought in the plastic ban, right? The one we have now.
In WA?
Yeah, so he brought in a plastic ban that was everything. That one got struck down, and then McGowan went, I will take the bag part and make that Labor's. And then that one passed. And now he's only bringing in the additional protections for barrier bags, which are the ones that you go to the shops and you put your potatoes and shit in. They're also hugely dangerous for the environment.
What do you think about the whole, like, because there was the shift to, like, instead of getting plastic bags for free, now you have to pay for them. Do you sort of feel like that was actually like a positive move to do?
I look at purely stats. When it's something that's like divisive that people go, this, I've got purely stats. And the stats are saying, okay, so there's two things that people forget or that people need to be mindful of when it comes to the plastic bag thing. One, what are the emissions of putting out from plastic bags? You actually cause more emissions by having to put out the sturdier bags because it takes more plastic to use them, right? But you have,
instead of like the old school, like really thin plastic
so
bags,
when we look at those carrier bags, the ones, or even the thick reusable tote bags or something, you have to use them 900 times before they start being a net reduction.
Wow.
Those reusable ones. Because the other ones, those flimsy, shitty, the old plastic, they were so
ones.
cheap that to be mass produced, they were so cheap, and the system was so efficient in terms of how it actually got oil to plastic to bag, as opposed to now it's like grow stuff, this, process this, put it in, has to be transported. Anyway.
And it takes a lot more time for it to essentially degrade.
We actually have potentially we have a slightly net change in the emissions. But the other flip side of the bags, why they were bad, is because they straight up just end up in the environment. So we're using way less bags right now, which is way less dolphins choking on them. So they didn't just have they had the ecological risk as well as the pollutant risk, because obviously we're using emitting carbon to be able to produce these things. And then at the same time, once you're done with them, you throw them out, and then all of a sudden your dog is just like, oh, hey.
Yeah, choking on a plastic
I better put this giant condom on my head. You're like, okay, all right. Yeah, great. But also, fuck the turtles. It's like Colin Ebsworth. You heard it right here. Fuck the turtles.
Well, I just think the whole, like, it may have reduced the amount of plastic that was going out into the environment. But, like, every time I'm still at the shops, like, and they ask, do you want to buy a plastic bag?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Like, it's
do you
$1.
have to do it? Yeah.
Like if they was more serious about it, they would make it more of like an economic, like,
so right
problem
now,
for people.
They will I imagine they're going to phase it out. I mean, ideally, the smattest thing to do is paper bag. It's going to break down. What the states have been doing for ages.
Like reuse cardboard boxes and stuff. You get a like bottle shops and all that
so
sort of thing.
that is going to be a thing they're bringing back now potentially because it was a whole health and safety thing. You know, I want 100 grams of ham and you put it in a barrier bag and then you got to wrap it up. It's like, hey, whatever happened to just paper? Or people can, in a lot of Scandinavian countries, you can just straight up bring your stuff in, bring your own containers. They have, instead of buying individual soap bottle like things, you'll get your shampoo and then it'll just be a giant gallon vat of
and you
Head
just
and
fill
Shoulders.
it up. Wow, really?
You do that. Like half this, half Slurpee. You're like, oh, Orange Blast. Sick. And Head and Shoulders, dandruff protection. I'm so excited.
Wow.
Anyway, I totally forget where we went.
That's a great idea.
Right back to politics. Oh, yeah. This is, man, I don't know which one of us needs Dexies more right now. This is the least cogent argument ever.
Politics, comedy, everything.
Halfway through that, just started playing the board game Risk. It was a 24-hour interview. But no.
3 hours later.
Yeah, 3 hours later, and I'm just like, I've got all of Australia. I mean, that's what you do if you want to win Risk, people. That's Colin giving you the hot tips. They call the wolf. They call him the Wolf of Catan Street. Anyway, no. So why I started the talk show. So 2019, I was like, you know what? I'll pull the trigger. I'll do a talk show, right? We call it the Lounge Live because it was at the Comedy Lounge. It got popular enough that we moved it, and then we decided to do a big rebrand when I dropped 10 grand on like a new set, and it's been going bigger and bigger since. But years and years ago, there used to be a comedy room by a former Perth comic named Jez Watts. He's now living in Melbourne. It was called Infinite Jest, right? And they used to do an experimental segment as part of this open mic. So it'd be like, hey, me and you go on stage, or we swap jokes, or maybe it's a bit of crowd work, or maybe it's like prop comedy. And for one of them, I asked him, I was like, hey man, would you be cool with me doing like 10 minutes of monologue jokes? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I went up there, and it was as part of like this special event. They do 50 first jokes, where they get as many comedians to go up and do 3 minutes of totally new material. Like you cannot have done it before. And it's a real fun night because it's obviously shit hits the fan. It's it's all over the place.
So it's not like quite improv, but it's like stuff that you have never done live before.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Which, is
pretty
demanding.
daunting.
Yeah, it's definitely demanding. Usually you might skip it, like put in 1 or 2 jokes. I like to go balls to the wall and just do a new 5 or whatever and just see what happens. But yeah, it can be pretty daunting. Right?
Do you feel like those sort of experiences have actually helped you progress as a comedian?
Yeah, definitely. Really, once you get some calluses and stuff on and you realize, like now there was a period where I could put out like 3 to 5 minutes in a week off like 5 gigs. And when I say put out, I mean, it wouldn't be the most polished it could be after a year, but I kind of went through this system where I was like, rather than writing a new hour a year that was really polished, because in reality, like this is kind of rule of thumb, at least in my experience, and a lot of people I think agree, that it takes 2 years to make a new hour of stand-up.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years
Wow.
from writing it and then polishing it. Because the polishing it takes time. People go, why would you bother? You just say the joke. And it's like, no, half a second here, one word there, this. Like there's so many different factors that can make a joke work or not. And that's when it comes down to like precision. So rather to circumvent that, I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll write 2 hours in a year and then just pick the best of that. So it was the joke rate was higher, but it wasn't as polished. And I was like, maybe there's a trade-off that I can do. So that's kind of what got me in the mindset for writing. But the reason I bring that up is it got me writing so much. And I would be putting this stuff out and then being like, you know what? I don't even really care about doing it anymore. Like I was interested in just getting it out, which exactly suits the format of a late night talk show that is purely topical, purely a current affairs, the rate that you burn through. I just want to put something out, film it, and then put it aside and then keep going. Like
well,
right
I think the stuff that you would, the monologue stuff that you've got up on your Ebsworth Tonight channel, I think it's like very politically, a political talk sort of thing. So it definitely is very suited for a talk show.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that. I love like creativity is just largely the amount of input you have. And I love being able to look at the news because there's just hundreds of stories. I mean, when I'm writing monologue jokes, I've got 25 tabs open across every news subreddit that you can have.
Like there's so much, like especially I guess for yourself being a comedian, like is this an infinite source of inspiration if you just flick on the fucking news?
Yeah, definitely. Rather than having to like introspectively look in and be like, how do I feel about my ex and blah, blah, and then write some 5-minute bit that was just like...
just horse shit.
Yeah. But now it's just like, hey, how can I turn this into a thing? It's more of a puzzle and I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah,
so
I can totally imagine you just practicing in the mirror.
Yeah, a lot of people go, did you practice in the mirror? Yeah, I practice in the mirror. Me and my brother used to do this shit all the time. So whenever Rove was on, this is why I got a lot of love for Rove, because I didn't realize until now as an adult.
Shout out to Rove, by the way, he's a legend.
Shout out to Rove, yeah. One of our big sponsors.
Yeah, go onto our podcast.
Yeah, check it out. It's just him by himself, and he's just holding a couple of logies, just like...
having a laugh.
Yeah, he's laughing. No. So I would take the monologue and I would like say it line for line the next day at the kids. And this was like primary school. We used to do that pretty much every day. That was the thing that I used to do. Practicing in front of the mirror. Yeah, all the time. Me and my brother would just, and we thought it was normal, but you like listen to something or you watch Happy Gilmore or something as a kid and there was a funny line. We would just say it and then say it and say it and just keep saying it. Like the ads were rolling at this point and me and my brother are still trying to get these exact lines down without even realizing we were practicing. So like it became like beat for beat precision and to how to mimic this stuff, which paid dividends. So anyway, I did that 51st jokes. I got up there, I did the monologue set, and it just killed. Like it was so fun to do. It wasn't like, oh my God, he changed the game or blah, blah. But for me, like I was like, oh, this is a huge thing for me.
Great feeling.
It was a really fun set. I got it recorded, just, some shitty camera at the back, but it was just really nice to be like, oh, that was cool. And I did a couple more of them and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then over the years, I didn't realize if you put together this whole kind of picture, it's like I was writing way more than I needed to with a huge output. I was politically minded. I was leaning towards funny monologue jokes and talk show stuff. My whole kind of shtick is I'm a young white guy that is just a generically looking kind of Kendall T1000 kind of dude. So I was like, hey, what suits this?
Talk show.
A talk show.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But the talk show is great because it lets me do all the stuff you can't. Because again, Australian crowds, like I was saying, there's a lot of stuff that if you walk on stage they don't like, and I feel like everyone has their own hurdles, and definitely certain comics have more. Like I'm not going to be a guy being like it's easier to be a woman. Like it took me years to kind of mature and realize, oh no, my female comedian friends have it way worse. They have a lot of the same hurdles, and then even more. But it's like one of the hurdles that I have is it's like you're a straight white guy who looks like he's got everything together. It's not a huge hurdle. Don't get me wrong. It's not massive. It's not career ending, but it's something to be mindful of.
That people are going to probably be thinking that when they're listening to you talk.
Definitely. It's totally different. And I see this all the time. I'll be doing a gig and you see some guy in the front row with his girlfriend, and if the girlfriend's laughing and he's an insecure kind of beefhead, then he would do arms crossed.
Yeah.
Be like, you think he's funnier than me? You think he's got more bananas than I do?
Do you say that often?
Man, so many times. And if he arcs up...
I couldn't imagine being like that.
But it's like, you can talk to him and you can kind of sweet talk him a little bit and be like, oh, if I was as handsome as you, I'd want to hug myself too. And then guys will inevitably just go,
I'm having a good time.
Yeah, I'm kind of. You can. It's the funny thing because they're all like, if a dude's all like fucking physical, I'll dominate you. But you get in his head and you say, okay, there's 150 people now who have put you on a spot, and if you react negatively,
you're gonna look like the
you're gonna look like an asshole. Yeah. But if they arc up, then you don't even acknowledge them. You really want to mess with them. Then
have you had any experiences where it almost got like actually like dangerous almost from a crowd member?
Like I can think of stories I've heard from other comics. Sometimes
because I could imagine it getting like, especially if you like touring and you go to like venues that aren't like big and it's a very intimate sort of crowd.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was one time I did. You can totally. That's totally a thing. I haven't had it happen to me, but like I know of comics that have happened to. Sorry, I'm just reminiscing. There's so many stories. I am trying to think. I've had people heckle. I've never had people get really up in my face about it, which I probably should have at some point.
Yeah, it helps being 7'2", doesn't it, Colin?
Yeah, you forget. I know I get on the tall side. I know you kind of forget, but I've never really had that. I've had people who just straight up don't like me. Yeah, or crowds just get really shitty. But I've never had you want to go, you dog? You're not my dad.
Yeah. No, that I could. Fuck, I would deal with that.
Yeah,
that's the worst thing as well. Like because I've been a massive stand-up comedy fan since I could ever remember. Just like memories of like me and my dad being like, I was like 12 years old, just staying up all night watching comedy and stuff like Arj Barker and like people like the Melbourne Comedy Show and all that sort of thing. And like the thought of going out to a night out and then having it ruined by some dickhead.
Oh
is
shit! You just
the worst fucking thing.
Yeah. No, I did have a guy try to fight me this year.
This year?
Yeah,
please
this year.
tell us this story.
Okay, so I'm doing a gig. I'm doing a gig at The Craft. It's run by a great Perth comic and booker, Zeppo, and I'm headlining, right? It was a fun gig. I had a joke I wanted to try for the talk show. And the joke was a bit on the riskier side, but I was so excited by it that I wanted to try it out. So I did it as headline set. Set went fine. It was great. Walked off stage. I was like, sorry if I went over, which is just, if you do, like, it's a polite thing to say to the booker, like, at least I'm aware that I apologize.
I'm telling you that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and he was like, one of the other comics was like, Zeppo needs to talk to you right now. And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to get chewed out or something. And he comes up, he's like, hey, man, great set. Some guy wants to fight you, so just hang here for 2 seconds. And I was just like, what are you bringing him over? He's like, no, we're just going to make sure he's gone. And I was like, all right. And it was this, apparently, I didn't get to interact with him. I was like, apparently it's this white dude. But I had this joke, and I like this joke, and I stand by this joke, but it made me reconsider it. But then in the end, we ended up doing the talk show, and it went great. It was this joke where the co-host of the show would come on, right? And I'd be like, ladies and gentlemen, your co-host, Sam Cribb. And Sam Cribb comes on and he goes, it's great to be here, guys. Just want to pay my respects to Lord Mayor Basil Zemplis. And then I was going to be like, what? What are you doing? And then he's like, you said we had to. I was like, no, what are you talking about? And he goes, you said we had to say this. And I said, no, Sam, acknowledgement of country. Right? It's a dumb joke.
I think I saw that on your late night show. That's funny.
So
that is funny.
It's just a fun thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But I did that joke by myself, and I was like, just want to pay respects to Lord Mayor Basil Zemplis. And then I look at my phone and go, oh, sorry, it's acknowledgement of country. And this fucking white guy I heard what he wanted to hear to be like, I have decided I don't like this guy, and he's taking a shot at First Nations people. And I was like, how did you misread that at all? Poor champ.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but Basil Zemplis is not a First Nations Australian. I'm so sorry. That's actually pretty disrespectful to First Nations Australia. Yeah.
That's a funny joke.
Yeah,
that's a funny joke.
I don't know, but here the thing is, again, he was clearly trying to impress the girl he was with on a first date.
I feel like I'm representing a whole group of people now. I'm gonna take this guy on.
Definitely. And it's like, and man, you've got to realize sometimes, not sometimes, people project and people hear what they want to hear. Sometimes, I mean, there was a bit I used to do, but like it just got me too real. One time I was dating this girl, and I was like. I was like ending things with her. I was like, yeah, it just feels like sometimes you hear what you want to hear. And she just goes, oh, so I'm a liar. And I was like, what the fuck?
But it's true. It's like confirmation bias.
Yeah. And I was just like, you just ran with that. Oh my God, if only we could harness this power
this is the only thing you take from this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm a liar.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that shit happens all the time. So that's why, if anything, it's just reaffirmed the idea that you have to be bulletproof with the way that you present your concepts and ideas. Doug Stanhope was talking, he's a great comic, kind of like an alternative comic, but yeah, I'd say he's alternative, but he's easily one of the best in the world within that kind of field. And he was talking about, you can't, comedy can't be like music or any other art form. You can't repeat it. There's no chorus. It can't be open to interpretation. You have to understand exactly what's being said and why it's being said, because you can't have a kind of vague maybe punchline.
Well, especially if you get questioned on it later, you need to be able to like stick to your guns
definitely.
and be like, this is,
Absolutely.
you're misinterpreting what I was saying.
And there has been times when I've been like, oh, you know what? I realize actually that was probably just shitty. Because here's the flip side. And this is especially with young white guys starting to understand. I'm like, you want the admiration. You want to be able to do the skill set that makes everyone like you. Like, it's a really cool thing. It's creative. It's pure creative. But you're problem solving, right? You're like, how can I make this funny? And you present it and you get all your tools. And you go, yeah, look, I made it. I made it. It's a joke. And technically it is. Like, it's a setup, a punchline, and there is going to be a response. So you go, great. It's got the 3 aspects. This is a joke, without actually looking at what they've created. It's like someone being like, oh, I'm an artist now, I'm painting. It's like, hey, those are swastikas. Like, you've got to be mindful of what you're actually putting out.
Yeah.
And when you start out, especially I was in the same boat, I was like, oh, cool, I'll do this joke. But I didn't really understand even what I was using to make that joke and what it was saying. And now you look back and there's material in this phone from like 11 years ago that I keep in there deliberately so I can be like, oh, that guy was just trying to be funny and edgy.
Trying to be funny, but
stuff.
not actually understanding the implications of what you were using to make a joke.
Yeah, and now it's like, there's the whole idea of punching up and punching down, man. And now it's like, you can make any joke dirty or clean, which took me ages to realize. You can make any joke punch up or punch down. You can flip it however you want. A great like little writing tip that I was used to do for anyone who's just wants to change the way their stuff's being perceived. Like, I wrote 5 minutes, and let's say I wrote 5 minutes on boomers, being like, boomers fucking suck, you dumb dogs. You come to this country, you think it's a walk in the park. No, I'm just kidding. I know, I flipped their logic on them. Yeah. And then you just change the premise at the top that instead of like, I hate boomers, are the worst, you just go, how great are boomers? They're the best people. And then you try and just flip everything to go, oh my God, instead of being like, boomers don't give a fuck when they drive. They're pieces of shit. Now you just go, I love boomers because they don't give a fuck when they drive.
Yeah.
It's
Completely
the
flip the
same
premise.
thing. It's the exact same thing.
It's so
but
effective.
you're sending
That's a
you're
great
sending
tip,
in that direction.
actually. Yeah, that's a great tip.
So I would really recommend that. Flipping is my biggest writing tip to give anyone.
Yeah,
flipping, it's just the term that I use to describe when people go, oh, how do I make more material? And it's like, okay, what are you talking about? What contextually of the information can you change to give you a new understanding? So let's say like I was walking down the street the other day. It's like, great, what if you were on a bike? What happens if you walk on the street 100 years ago? What happens if you're a woman in the street? What happens if you're a different race? Whatever. And that'll give you stuff to compare it to. And all of a sudden you can use that contrast to create a through line, and that's a joke. Like, that's one of the easiest things I can tell people all the time. They're like, oh, I'm really struggling on like, this bit about how, farts are like cars. And it's like, okay, well...
This is fascinating because you
can still change some of this stuff. I thought of what's the shittiest open mic premise I could think of, and what if farts were cars? But in 10 years, I swear to God, Joe Rogan's gonna be like, and what you don't understand about farts and cars is that DMT lets you.
I heard
like,
this Australian dude.
He stole my bit. Yeah, Joe Rogan's listening to this podcast right now on those little 5-hour energy things that he's doing. Yeah,
Jesus
maybe
Christ.
He's actually here right now. Maybe he
could be
astral traveling.
He's the chimp of God in the next room in his cage, just waiting to get out. He's a horny chimp.
Imagine, I know, here's the thing, everyone always thinks Joe Rogan's his own guy, but what if Joe Rogan is just like, what if he's the pet and there's some nefarious kind of guy like, dance Joe Rogan, dance.
Jamie's actually
what if Jamie
the
turns
puppeteer.
Out, oh my God, what if at the end of every episode it's like Saw, you're like, Jamie was alive? What the fuck?
Have you seen those compilations of when Rogan just gets pissed at Jamie? He won't say anything, he'll just be like,
yeah, I know.
Looking like that
little back in your box kind of thing, that little Joe Rogan.
And then it's straight away Jamie's talking, he goes, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He just cowers away in his little corner and it's just...
I know, but it's like, that's clearly the dynamic. We always like to play with the idea that Sam in the talk show is like secretly in control. And so we always run these like gags where it'll be me being like, Sam, you idiot, blah, blah, blah. Cut. And then Sam's like, fix it again, make this shit. He's just, I don't know if you guys check it out, but Sam, our co-host, is one of the funniest people that's like ever existed in the history of mankind.
Leo, could you pull up Ebsworth Tonight, the Instagram page?
We'll see, because Sam is just, he is a 6'7" wet fettuccine man.
Wet fettuccine.
He literally, if you looked at him, 2 boys in a trench coat, he is clearly... composited of a variety of he's the funniest guy. So we had Sherry Lee Biggs, who's a Channel 9 reporter, and professional South African. And no, I'm just kidding. That's not
professionals. I'm
that's
a
not
professional.
What does that
New
mean?
Zealander.
Well, it means that I Google review people
Oh
poorly.
my god, who is that handsome man?
Yeah, wanted. This is old stuff back when it was the Lounge Live. But yeah, we had Sherry Lee Biggs and she pulled out with 24 hours notice. And we were like, fuck, we've told these people she's coming. What do we do? So we just straight up got Sam dressed as Miss Universe award winner. And I was like, hey man, we haven't got enough time to go over jokes. You're just going to have to riff. And it was we haven't put it up yet. And she doesn't know we've done this, but it's the funniest thing.
She will soon.
Literally, I was just, he's like, what do I do? And I was just like, we're going to dress you up as, keep scrolling down. I was like, we're going to dress you up as like you've just won Miss Universe. And, oh, by the way, do your best Miss Doubtfire. And so he comes on being like, hello, I'm Sherry Lee Biggs. I'm Sherry Lee Bixby. He keeps mispronouncing. And I was like, hey, so like, I was like, oh, you were on Celebrity Apprentice. Who were you with? And he was like, well, Jeffrey Epstein. And I was like, oh, fuck. I'm just sitting there as the host being like, you idiot. It's like,
is that where like the majority of your inspiration comes from, just from riffing and just fucking around?
Oh, man. With Sam, yes. I will write Sam all his stuff he needs to say. And then everything in between is purely riffed. I mean, he's just, so we did, for the very first show, we did it, and Sam was like, I was like, hey, you want to come back? Like, you want to do it again? He was like, oh, I don't really know if, I didn't really do that much. I don't really know if I'm needed. And I was like, I was so upset. He's one of my best friends. And I was like, Sam, you don't understand. Like, I can't do this show without you. I'll just make you more content. I'll make you more stuff to do. So we gave him his own investigative piece called Tall and Order, where he just investigates stuff. And it got such a good reaction.
Tall and Order.
Tall and Order. Easily, every one of these gets 3 times the engagement of like online. People just fucking love Sam doing anything. He's just.
And
like,
you've obviously realised that, and you've pounced on that opportunity to give him some more opportunity.
It's to the point now where we're planning a separate show within the talk show.
Is that him and his cock out?
So that's when we did a music video, Murdoch Pussies, and we had.
Dude, you got white teeth, man.
Thank you.
You got nice set of teeth there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's. But yeah, anyway, this is just going through my feed now. You guys can check this all out at a later date. This is all fun.
Yeah, another thing I was interested to talk to you about is North Korea.
We can absolutely talk about North Korea. Let's get into it.
On the Hard Yarns podcast we were talking about before, I'm not sure if I couldn't gather whether or not it was true or not.
Oh, it's 100% true. Yeah, my parents were matched in a mass wedding that was started by a North Korean cult. So North Korean started the cult. I've misphrased that. Yeah, it's called the Unification Church. It's called the Moonies.
Wow. In fact, we spoke about this last podcast we did with Lindsay.
With Lindsay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but Lindsay Flay is a visual effects guy.
And he knows about what? Cults in general?
Well,
or this particular
he was
cult?
talking about how sort of there was a lot of cinema that came out of the North Korean era with that cult that you're talking about.
Yeah. There was one, oh shit, I forget the name. Anyway, it was like considered one of the biggest flops in Hollywood history. The guy spent millions of dollars and it just tanked. I mean, it's about as big as that FIFA documentary that pulled in like $3,000 in its opening weekend.
$3,000.
Yeah, it was like a Hollywood movie of like the history of FIFA.
Jesus
and even
Christ.
sport, like soccer fans, some of the most like outlandishly, emphatic supporters ever.
Yeah, primal.
Yeah, we're just like movies and popcorn. Not today. I don't know why I made him vaguely Scouser. But yeah, so it was a North Korean car. I say North Korea because the guy lived in South Korea, but he was born there. And then the Korean War happened and he was like working in sulfur mines, like a prisoner of war camp because he was like a religious guy.
Yeah.
And then they were like, in communism, obviously, they were like, no religion but the state. And then he had to flee and then he started up in South Korea. But yeah, his name was Reverend Sun Yun Moon. Jamie, just look this up.
Reverend Sun Yun
I tell you
Moon.
what, you want to play a little game? Okay, look
Bro,
up.
I cannot spell that.
Can you just Google mass wedding and go on images? What do you bet is in the first page?
Mass wedding images?
Just go on images and Google and look up like Google mass weddings. So he would straight up, this was at Madison Square Garden is the blessing. But prior to that he had, that's it.
On the left?
No, that's the one with, I'd guess roughly
North Koreans.
10,000 Korean people. Yeah.
You
You're like,
racist.
now, maybe it's the other one.
Racist.
No, but yeah, this is it. South Korea, 1,000 time, not mass wedding ceremony. Yep. But it's a whole worldwide thing,
Wow.
you know.
Fuck, that's so many people.
Yeah. Oh, the guy died with an estimated net worth of $90 billion.
90
90 billion. Yeah, my mum would just fundraise around the country. She had like these pins to say she was the number one fundraiser.
Yeah.
And sell any number of merch. My dad, like merch for the, it's like merch for the
cult.
Yeah, get our tote bags.
Wearing all like MAGA hats, but for the
definitely.
The church.
Anyway, it's all funny because after the leader died, like now obviously the church is like really fractured. Some are following the son and some are following the wife and blah, blah. Also, he was like this God's divine light, but he was divorced. So funny. But yeah, my dad used to... okay, so hold on. Just to clarify, he had tons of money, put it in tons of industries. He was huge into fishing. So my dad worked on the...
fishing
in the bayou.
with an F or a P?
Oh, with an prior to the I love that. It's like, it's just my dad is pretending to be a woman, being like, "Oh my god, what's your favorite random 16 numbers?"
Catfish.
Yeah. But the thing is, in the bayou, they did have catfish. Anyway, that's why I was born in Alabama, because Dad was doing the whole bubblegum shrimp thing. Which is why
You're born in Alabama.
2 passports, baby.
In America.
Yeah. If any of you lovely lady listeners who would like a green card,
bubblegum shrimp.
I am not welcome back. No. I would love to go to Alabama. The stories my parents told me was exactly what you'd expect.
Wow, Alabama, Texas, right? Am I wrong?
No, Alabama is a state.
Oh, it's a
but
state.
you know what?
I know absolutely nothing about America.
You'd suit Alabama. You'd be good there.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, the state of America. No. So Alabama is a separate state, and then Texas is just to the left. And there's a few shitholes in between. No, I don't want to say that. There's stuff going on.
There's a lot.
It's like I've never been there.
There's a lot going on in between.
Yeah, there's some stuff going on. No, but yeah, there's from Alabama. Dad met up in London after finding a copy of a book. This guy's like OG Manifesto, The Divine Principle. He found it on a park bench. But the crazy thing is, there are only 1 or 2 of these in the whole of London, and they hadn't been printed yet. Like no one knows how he got it. Like, tell me that's not like the most weird divine intervention. So they were being printed north, like a few hours north, and they hadn't been released yet. So it's like, how the fuck did he find this? And then he went along to a seminar after that. Mum just straight up just bailed. She was like really smart, so she skipped a couple of grades. And she got my grandfather to forge like a signature. or say she was 18 when she wasn't, so that she could go to California from New York on a bus.
Wow.
And like they make you... Anyway, so she had a cross-country bus ticket, gets off at the first stop after she says bye, and then cashes it in and just does whatever. And it's so funny because my mum is the sweetest, like, okay guys, you watch out for marijuana, blah, blah. And I'm like, motherfucker, you ran away at 16.
Yeah, it used to be a hectic.
It's like, she went on a tour in Europe and then like left the cycling tour. And then, so she was just off the grid. And this was like the 70s. So like, she's done. They're gone.
What was that book called? The Divine Intervention?
The Divine Principle. You can check that out.
The Divine Intervention.
But this is like one of many misadventures she had as a kid. Like
the Divine Principle there.
She came back one day and then she left. She was in Europe on a cycling tour. She left it and just like goes AWOL, starts traveling around Europe. My grandfather was like, what the fuck, where are you? She comes back dating a treasure hunter.
Jesus Christ. You got a hectic family story.
He goes to boats and he's just like, have you got any gold? The boat's like, yeah, I got some gold. Anyway, and so she joins the Moonies, right? And then she leaves the Moonies to start dating this other guy. Ooh, Sun Yun Moon.
Search up Sun Young Moon.
That's it. Yeah, check him out. OG. Go Sun Yun Moon net worth. Let's see if I was right. Anyway, so that was the first time look a cute little supreme leader. They call them the heavenly. They call them the true parents because their whole philosophy is that they are like the ideal family. And they are the true parents of like everyone. It's so funny because part of me is like, obviously, only 900 million.
Yeah, 900 mil. There you go.
Oh, hold on. Was that his whole company or was that him personally?
I think him personally as an author.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Maybe I was wrong. 90 billion did seem high.
That's maybe like 4 Gina Reinhardts.
No, but his businesses are because he owns fisheries. They were doing movies. They were doing literature. And the thing is, he's not paying
the size of his
any
overall corporation.
Yeah, he's not paying any of these people.
Yeah,
they're all working for free like my parents did.
That's insane.
But anyway, 900 million is still nothing to.
But also probably not paying any tax either, right? Being a religious organization.
No, definitely. Because tax makes religions just feel icky. Tax is like milk if you're intolerant. It's like I just kind of.
Have you seen George
really do
Carlin's bit
taxes.
on God and tax? He's just like, God's good with everything except for money.
Yeah, God's good.
I need money.
God's good for everything.
Pays no tax.
That's so funny because
That's
I
funny,
like
dude.
Colin now, but I've always liked Colin, but I watch his stuff and I can understand why it was really funny back then. But I guess it just doesn't click with me. But hearing you just now, no stand-up comedy experience, just do one of his bits and contextualize it.
Yeah.
For us, I'm like, oh, I can totally see it. That's so funny. That's hilarious. So isn't that amazing that
Colin's
he's
amazing,
still
dude.
funny?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, one of the OGs. But yeah, so they were doing that. Mum joins the cult, and then she leaves the cult and shacks up with a guy she was dating from The Weatherman. Leo, just quickly Google The Weatherman, and actually, you know what? Google top 5 domestic terror cells in America.
What?
Because The Weatherman was a radical terrorist cell.
Wow, I'm actually learning some stuff today.
So she's living in a rain in a
But the weatherman.
Sorry,
she's
Colin, can
living.
you repeat that?
The
Top
Weatherman.
5.
Just look up. No, I'm literally killing you. Just look up The Weatherman. It'll come up. You have to look up top 5 radical terrorists.
I'm literally killing.
I know. I don't want to read 5 pages on the police, but
Just like that.
yeah, the weather. Well, not the movie. The Weathermen group or the Weathermen
Terrorist
terror,
organization.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, I hope you've got your VPN on. Otherwise, we're going to get some fun interactions from it. No, I'm just kidding. We're not ABC journalists. The AFP isn't going to
Weather
fuck with us.
Underground?
That's it.
Yeah,
It was
that's
a radical
another
left-wing
hectic topic
militant
to talk about.
organization.
Oh,
Yeah.
our logo.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool logo. It looks kind of, stick art. It's cool.
Ideology, communism, far left, black power. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so she was living with this guy and,
Wow.
and in this kind of group in a literal rain tank, like one of those big rainwater.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she was like, no, I don't think this is for me. And then she went back for the cult, and then they got matched in the mass wedding. And the one you saw, that's actually a blessing. So they get matched before. So Reverend Moon has all the guys on one side, all the girls on the other, and he's like, you and you and you and you, and it's just like, oh, I guess that's a family now. And the whole thing was that he thought that he could see the ancestors like their spirits or their ghosts, saying like who should be together. So it'll be like your parents and grandparents behind you, their spirits being like, oh, put him with her.
Right.
I think that'll be cute. And then maybe there's just like one shitty grandfather who's just like, just don't put him with that. I don't like them. I don't trust them. It's just like, okay, you're pretty racist. All right. Like that's easily rule number 1. Why would you listen to your relatives, like your great grandparents? Anyone going back more than 3 generations is going to have a lot of stuff you don't want.
Fuck that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
in a person.
my grandparents now, like, I love them to death, but they're
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
conservative.
Yeah, pretty conservative. Yeah, it's definitely.
to say the least.
But I do my part when it comes to boomers, like I don't, because there comes a point where you just can't teach them anymore. My dad's like paying money to the Epoch Times. I'm like, motherfucker, you haven't even subscribed to my Patreon and you're giving money to a super conservative. It's crazy. It's a super conservative news outlet that was started by China, which is so interesting because obviously China considers itself not super right. They're authoritarian, but not right-wing conservative. Anyway, it's just bizarre, and he doesn't even understand. I'm like, hey, China has made a PR nightmare for the West, and you are buying into it because it'll sow seeds of confusion and doubt. And he's just like, no, but what the guy says about this.
What's it called?
That one's the Epoch Times.
The Epoch Times.
EPOCH. So it's a Chinese media organization that actually pushes far-right content in the States.
And your father subscribes
Yeah,
to these
subscribe
people.
to that.
Yeah,
and here I am being like, hey, he's like, oh, can you give me 2 tickets for one? Can I get Dunky a free ticket? He wants to bring the cat. And I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? The Epoch Times is a far-right international multi-language newspaper media affiliated with the Falun Gong New Religious Movement. So anyway.
Wow.
Started in China, but it's far right, which is interesting. In the same way that, Russia has been sowing dissent since the 20s.
Yeah.
Because Lenin and shit realized that, hey, no one who's having it good is going to radically change their lives and go to communism. So we have to kind of start, lighting fires underneath people. And they called it active measures. And for the last 80 years, this isn't, I don't want to be like some conspiracy. It's just a very smart geopolitical strategy.
Yeah.
They didn't have the money to invade these countries and make them communist. So what they did is just turn them into hotbeds of like revolt and literally everything, whether it's so much easier than like to go into
And sort of funding like separatist groups within the region.
So like California exit, which was something that originally I was like, you know what, fucking pull the plug, let's do it. Yeah, make California its own fucking country because they are the 9th biggest economy in the world.
Well, it's like Australia. They've got more people there than Australia.
Yeah, definitely. It's huge. It's like 30 million
ridiculous.
something or more. But anyway, there was traces that Russia was paying money to the organization. But the thing is, the guy didn't know. It's not like Russia calls you up and says, hey, everyone's like, George Soros is funding me. It's like, you are an idiot who's never used a bank account in your life. How do you I was just telling you, I had to put 47 pages
George
together
Soros.
for a grant from the local Department of Culture.
Yeah.
Like, what the you think what? There's just some Soros grant? And also, someone made a great point. It's like, if Soros is just giving away money, wouldn't you just say, "Oh, I'm super left wing, money please, money please," just like a
It's not quite as easy as
yeah,
it
just
seems.
a boomer with his pension, just like money for nothing, please. Anyway, back to the boomer thing. I do try and engage with them and understand, but all I do is my part and just tell them, hey, the vaccine is a lie. Don't get it. And hopefully that just sorts it out. Like, that's all we can really hope to do. So anyone who's watching at home, like,
You heard it here first.
just, because one, going to free up supply for, people who pay tax and, I guess don't want certain groups dead. And also, no boomers. So, sick. I can afford a house. That's good.
Yeah, like
does that work?
whenever I hear really, really old, like, conservative politicians just talk absolute nonsense, in the back of my head, I'm always just the only thing I'm thinking is like, oh, this is bad, but like, they'll be dead soon. So that's all right.
Yeah, I know. But then their kids. It's going to be wild what happens in Australia, because everyone's like, the older you get, the more conservative you get, which is true if you have stuff. But if we're living in the society we have now, where we aren't owning property and to the same,
or it's
not nearly
incredibly
the same
difficult.
rates,
Yeah.
it's way harder. We have less possessions and stuff. All of a sudden, like, if you don't have anything to own, then your relationship with the police is wildly different. Because, like, you're not calling on them to be like, hey, protect my property rights.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. We actually have this huge fervor and base that's going to come in the next decade or 2 decades or so of incredibly left-leaning young people in Australia.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, and so usually it kind of amorphs into an amorphous blob. It's like maybe 70% left, because the young people usually kind of lean left, and then it kind of goes in and that splits. But we're seeing a way bigger amount leaning left and progressive in their views and attitudes, but we're also seeing way less of them change and kind of go into the middle ground or even go towards the right.
So as they will publicly announce that they are progressive.
Yeah.
but
I mean, as well, like, in the demographics of voting are not changing in the way they used to because of all these societal factors. So you're going to end up with a lot more left-leaning people in the next couple of decades, especially as this whole far-right reactive movement to neoliberalism, et cetera, and all these other kind of plans has come in. So that's why we've seen so many far-right people come in. That's why we've seen, rise of Trump and various stuff across Europe. But that is a reaction to things going too far one way, and now that they've gone too far right, they're going to go back, but they're going to go back the other way
giant pendulum.
with way more people kind of supporting it. So it's like, to get the longest period of peace we've ever had in humanity, we had to have World War II. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a bit bizarre.
90 million people had to die for Europe to not, not stick its finger in each other's ears for 80 years.
I only learned that, like, my entire family spent more than 40 years in the military, but I only just learned, like, a few weeks ago, that America didn't join in World War II until like 1943 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 42 when Pearl Harbor happened.
42, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. And they did the same thing. A lot of people don't know the US was in World War One. And they forget that. US came in really late in World War One. They were, again, US was wildly isolationist, which is why it's really interesting now that we have all these countries that the US is like, hey, you have to open up to us. We give you a loan. Neoliberalist policies follow, like, I give you a loan. You have to adopt these values. You have to open up your market, reduce taxes, and let the market do its thing and fix it all up. And it's like, hey, America, how did you make money? From wildly protectionist policies that allowed your domestic infrastructure to develop? Yeah, okay.
Without outside influence.
Yeah, okay, because if you can't import sweatshirts for $1 from other people, you have to make them domestically for a fair price,
be very expensive.
which is going to strengthen the unions, which is going to strengthen local industry, which is going to strengthen the average consumer, amount of money, and your demand for your own dollar, because you're not buying other currency to buy their stuff. You're only investing in your own. So all these policies build up your own. And it's the same across. It's why China. Okay, it's why America's fucking terrified of China, because 50% of Chinese industries are state subsidized. Right, so China's going, oh, you want us to open up our market so you guys can come in and absolutely fuck us over a barrel. No, we're going to put our money into keeping our own state industries going. And obviously, if two things can be purchased or made for $10, but one of them is getting a $5 rebate from the government,
You're gonna go
the
with
guy, that one's going to be more popular. Yeah. And so now America's kind of like, well, you have to play fair. And it's like, no, you're both giving money away to companies. China's just doing it to companies that people need, and America's doing it to
make money.
Boeing,
and
Raytheon, and whoever else.
Yeah, like Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, it's so funny. People are like, the war in Afghanistan cost $2.2 million. I was like, no, it didn't cost that.
Trillion.
That money, 2.2 trillion. Sorry, that money wasn't. That money was given. It's not like, oh, you lost this money. No, we know where it went. You transferred it from here to there. Like America gives Israel $30 billion in aid in its most recent package, but that's $30 billion that they're going to use to buy US weapons. So what you've done is just given American money to American weapons companies. Anyway, this is where
the cycle continues. But Taiwan is another interesting because I think the US gave $1.6 billion essentially to buy weapons just recently. Can you look this up for us though?
Yeah, definitely.
Taiwan US weapons deal.
Okay, so they have to. Not they have to, but the South China Sea is going to be a fucking nightmare in the next couple of years. Hugely important passageway for ships. A lot of natural resources there. There's 4 or 5 separate countries, including the Philippines and Vietnam, that all claim ownership of it. China started going, hey, well, if we have land there, then it's technically ours. So they started building islands to rock hop and kind of block this thing off.
$1.8 billion.
So Taiwan is considered one of the 4 tiger economies that pulled ahead in Asia, along with Singapore and Malaysia. Surprising. I didn't know this. Malaysia's economy is fucking through the roof.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I've never been to Malaysia.
When COVID happened, they had such an experience with bird flu and SARS. They literally went straight lockdown. Everyone got N95 masks delivered to their home. Like, just crazy.
Wow.
I had no idea how rich a lot of Malaysia is. Anyway, so these economies worked really well because like Singapore was just a trading post. They had nothing and they were like, hey, how can we fix this? Let's become a finance place. Let's create really strong state subsidy for our financial sector and our businesses and manufacturing. It's an island. Like imagine if Tasmania was one of the biggest economies, like relative per capita.
That's crazy.
That is nuts. You know what I mean? And instead we have, if anything, I would like to swap Tasmania and Singapore. Can we just, I wish you could do a country swap.
Well, have Singapore like down here.
Just swap. Yeah, do a Freaky Friday.
That would be cool.
I would love to see that in the middle of anyone's.
Singapore's really interesting because it's not, in terms of, essentially like it's one of the key areas for trade in that part of the world, but it wasn't always like it's like what Hong Kong looked like Hong Kong 20 years ago. Have you seen the comparison photos? No, I haven't.
Jamie, can you pull that up? So it's never not going to be funny to me. No, but if you see what they did over 20 years, I mean Saudi Arabia was built in 20 years. There was nothing there in Dubai.
Yeah. Wow.
And now they're just like, hey, and they're doing it again. They're building like a thing in the island because obviously Saudi state-run oil is going to run out. So it's estimated to be owned by the government, or by the kingdom, which is the government. So they're thinking of selling it though, their state-owned, which would be a $2 trillion. It would be the biggest sale in history.
Wow.
But they're selling it because they realize that, hey, if people are moving away from oil and stuff, and one of the plans I saw was $2 trillion, buy an island in the middle of nowhere and just make another Singapore. And that would be the new, do you know what I mean? That would be.
Wow. Just build an island.
Yeah, definitely. Just a giant kebab shop. You're like, this is sick.
Speaking of natural resources, like learning, like, because I've been doing a lot of reading just about, because obviously with the whole Afghanistan situation, it's a lot of people don't realize that, potentially Bush invaded Iraq because there weren't any weapons of mass destruction to get the oil and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But natural resources have played a significant role even 50 years before 2001.
Oh yeah, it's wild. So here's a crazy thing I didn't know that I learned this year with regards to this from some unit I was studying. We have access to more natural resources now than we did 100 years ago. So because of the technology we have, it's infinitely more detrimental because we have to, go sludging through the middle of the ocean. But which blows my mind. We can access more oil today than we could 100 years ago. And that's factoring in for everything we've used already, which is just wild. But now the process is to get it. You have to go deeper. You have to do more and more stuff.
And it's more environmentally.
Yeah, there's going to be, it's any day now. BHP is going to be like, we found a new source. Actually, it's kids' bones. The marrow from kids' bones
and we can
is
grow
actually
them in
95 unleaded. Yeah. We could. He's like, we could grow them in a lab, but where's the fun? Yeah. And all of a sudden, it just turns into the world's worst BCF ad. That ain't living, Barry. BHP.
Yeah. Run your cars on your children.
Yeah, run your cars on children.
Exactly. Fuck electricity, use your child as a battery.
Use your child as a battery. Yeah, all of a sudden with the ever ready buddy, it's just like it turns into this like stark kind of nitty film noir thing. Yeah. Anyway, natural resources, crazy. Someone made a very good point the other day. I mean, Afghanistan has huge. Their whole thing was like opium, massive amounts of opium.
Yeah, for
fields,
sure.
right?
I think like before the war, it was 20% of the or 10% of the world's opium came from there, but now like 90% of the world's opium just comes from
it's not like we don't need opium too.
Yeah,
but we need opium.
Big pharma.
Yeah, we need opium, but the guys who want to be able to sell it don't want Afghanistan to have opium. In the same way that someone was like, hey, you know what grows everywhere? Fucking cotton. Cotton grows everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you know, what are some industries we can get Afghanistan to swap onto on this 20-year endeavor that we're going to do to try and nation build? And they went, no, we can't have cotton. You can't grow cotton because America grows cotton.
Yeah. Even though it fucking grows everywhere.
Yeah. They're like, no, you can't. So you can't have to, you've got to start focusing on stuff that doesn't naturally grow in Afghanistan that's incredibly difficult to grow. And so they just fucked their agriculture.
Yeah, the whole the opium situation is interesting because like all those photos came out of like American troops and Australian soldiers as well, like protecting opium fields.
Yeah,
but it's because it's like almost like it used to. I'm not sure about it anymore, but it used to be just a narco state. Like that was like the sole source of their economy, essentially booming.
Well, when you get when you don't have strong infrastructure and government systems, of course you inevitably are going to have these kind of a narco state come up, and so that all of a sudden, if you had have left those unprotected, like that would have just been like, okay, great, now we got to deal with Taliban and a warlord because he just took all the poppy fields.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like
crazy, dude.
Yeah. Anyway, blows my brain. So I guess my journey in stand-up.
Dying in the war and natural resources into my comedy.
Yeah, definitely. It's a war on comedy. No, I'm just kidding. I sound like Andrew Bolt now. It's a fucking war on comedy. Dude, you've never laughed in your entire life. Oh my God. I got in trouble once about this. Like, I was just like, some of the worst audience members are South Africans. Like, I will freely tell people that. And I got in trouble once because it's like they don't laugh and
It's the punchline.
And they bring guns. Yeah.
No, it's the thing, mate. I realize now why I was completely wrong. There are lovely South Africans. I've met them. Lovely South Africans. They're just in South Africa.
Yeah.
The ones that we deal with here in Perth.
They're not here.
Were the rich ones who had a reason and motive and funds to leave and went, oh, this place is changing. I can't be here anymore. People are going to realize that my face is on the money and it's probably not a good thing. So they came over.
Accent,
they came over. They left, and they're here. And so we got the Danny DeVito in Twins of just the junk DNA. We got the
Africa.
shit. All the nice ones are in South Africa, being like, no, it has its charms. We're gonna stay here and work with everyone to try and get together. And the guys who were just like, nah, sharing, fuck that noise. You just went vaguely Lebanese there, little bit. You got to pull it back. But anyway, I did this joke where I was like, I just don't like South Africans are the worst audience members, and they are because they heckle and shit.
And you made a joke about this.
Yeah. I was just like, they're the worst. They don't have comedy. Like, what's the South African joke? Like, why did the chicken cross the road? Because it didn't know its place. And I was like, oh, it's just a silly joke. But yeah, they get so uppity. So uppity. It was bad. I said that South Africa's like if Slytherin was a country. I shouldn't. It's not. You can't. I know, but then I don't.
Africa's like one of the only places I've never travelled to. And I know a few people have travelled to South Africa, and also in other different countries and stuff, and they reckon it's probably the most wildest place.
Which one?
In the fucking world. Like every single place, like Libya.
Oh, okay.
Every single place in Africa. But it's even South Africa, like people sort of think it's like this, or sort of like a modernised sort of place. Yeah. Like it's all good. It's really like, it's very hectic.
It's interesting. So, is it Botswana? A friend of mine, this white guy we used to work with, I think it was from Botswana. What's the one? It's with a B. Botswana.
Yeah.
He was like, for whatever reason, the government and the way that imperialism and colonialism ended, and this is probably blatant patriotism, obviously it has issues and was a real dick move for the English, I imagine, to do, but apparently their government systems and stuff were left, the transition was way smoother than most, and so he was like, it was actually like a pretty chill place to live. It's just there wasn't anything on. Like there just wasn't a lot happening, but it was like way safer. So I thought that was interesting. It is funny to note that when I say South Africans, we know who I'm talking about. White South Africans.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've never, if I see a black South African, it's just like, oh, hey, this is a regular person.
Yeah,
but white South African, you're like, oh, these fucking South Africans. Oh my God.
Yeah, such a distinct accent.
I've never looked at someone who looks so similar to me and it's like, you piece of shit. Maybe that's my own.
I would totally travel to places like South Africa and America, but
getting shot isn't exactly on my agenda.
Yeah,
But that's
I
what
know.
they tell you. Like it's going to happen, and it's, I swear it's
I know.
unlikely.
And in America, you're
Like,
not really going to get shot unless
No.
you're a journalist or unless you know.
start walking
We
the
go
fucking
through
streets
every-
with an AR-15.
Yeah, how long do we have to go through all the different? You're not going to get shot in America unless, and then it's just the list. Just every.
Like the idea, like
Have
because
you got legs? Have you been outside
obviously
today?
in America, like it's all distributed by states. Like you could travel
yeah.
over state borders, and the gun laws are so different. Like
Yeah, yeah.
like walking around in Texas, for instance, would just be. I don't know if I could handle that.
Yeah,
Like open
it
carry
did not.
states.
It did not
Yeah.
come together, that country, the way Australia did. It's so wildly different. I mean, these were 13 rogue states, each doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hey, what's the best way we can make a country to kick out the big oppressor, which at the time was England?" And yeah, they still largely, the whole framework of their government is built on the idea that all the 50 states are different.
Well,
And they're
that's
doing
sort
their
of
own thing.
that's like their inherent problem, right? Is that
Yeah.
it is so polarized could be the correct word to use. I'm not sure, but because there are so many people trying to fill up all these different spaces that even people who I know have traveled to America.
Oops, sorry.
Like yourself being one,
Yeah.
a couple of my friends, they all reckon as soon as you enter into a different state, it's like entering into it like a separate part of the country.
Totally different.
Yeah,
And also
completely
Americans,
separate culture.
I read that it's like only 30% have passports because they don't, and this is a huge issue for the States. In Australia,
30%.
Yeah, in Australia when you're
Could you fact check
17
this for us, Leo?
Yeah, see, what's the ratio? I would be very
Number of
interested in that.
Americans with passports.
What percentage of Americans have passports? Because the reality is, you want to go to snow, you go to America. You want to go to the desert, America. Everything you want
got
is already
everything.
there.
Yeah.
But in Australia, what do? You're 17. Fuck this noise. Let's go on a Kentucky that I won't remember.
Canada, yeah.
Yeah, you go everywhere. What's the least amount of money I can get paid to
Yeah.
do the most menial job somewhere else?
Only a third. Oh, okay, there you go.
Have a valid and unexpired boots. God,
Wow.
I'm just roping these facts today.
I didn't
Just
know that.
throwing it
That's-
out.
That's
I'll be honest, it's
fascinating.
a 50-50 hit ratio. I've been wrong a lot today. I don't know. Yeah,
You
they
brought
just
your
don't,
A game. I'm
they don't
glad.
travel. They don't.
Yeah.
But it's a huge problem because you can go to all these amazing places and see all these things, but you're still in America. You're still getting a largely American point of view. And even though there's an unhomogenized culture across different states and stuff, American culture on the whole, like the concept, it's the pinnacle of what you would describe as like, this is West. I mean, it's like, it's such a trip to go over there. It's hyper capitalism.
I used to want to go there when I was really young, like obviously just like American sensationalism. Like I'd love to move to America, but yeah, growing up and learning a little bit more about like geopolitical
wild.
issues and stuff, I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
if
I went there when I was younger and it was
Yeah.
the funnest time. And then I went there, I was like in my 20, I think I was, I must have been 20. And I couldn't enjoy it the way I did when I was a kid. Maybe it was just a
Bizarre.
bit older, but also you just know all these facts. It's so hard to be like, wow,
Yeah.
look at that, the Empire State Building. Sorry, let me just hop over 20 homeless people in a row.
Yeah.
Just, what an amazing feat. Wow, what a cool thing that humans did. Shut up.
Yeah.
I don't have any change. Do you know what I mean? It's just, how can you live like
It's
that?
just extreme. You know,
Yeah, but also ads and stuff. Like it is. Like I say, hyper capitalist. It is
Yeah.
exactly that. It's culture shock for Australians to go over there, and you'll be watching TV, and the ads. You can just tell the ad. There's
Cringe.
so much more. There's so much more, and then it'll be like, hey, ask your doctor about this medicine, and it's like, no, the doctor tells you what medicine. The audacity of you being like,
I need this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you need stitches. You're like, I prefer a cast if you can, which is mental. And then they have to, from at least the fucking FDA was in there a little bit, had to put in, you have to put all the symptoms and stuff in. So it'll be like, hey, try this new thing. Side effects include, and one of them was just like, suicidal thoughts, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is acne medication.
Yeah.
Also, they have acne. They already have suicidal thoughts. Don't remind them. Do you know what I mean?
You're making it worse.
Yeah.
FDA. Yeah.
Anyway, so it's bizarre, and I've seen that kind of stuff happening in Sydney now because some comics were talking about it. A great guy, Luke Kidgel, had a bit I was watching the other day. So it's kind of like distressing that stuff is kind of bleeding over here.
Turning into hyper marketing, hyper advertisement.
Yeah, of ads everywhere. There was one
It's fucking
place
scary.
in Mexico, somewhere in Central America, and they just banned marketing, like banned ads.
Wow. Okay.
So you walk down the street and it's just, it was bizarre, the comparison. So
Wow.
it's like people are like, how do you advertise? And so you have to talk to people. You have to be like, hey, this is my shop.
You don't
do you want
force
to come
feed
in?
it to people. You
Yeah,
like-
but there's not a golden arches. Like France had a thing where I think they banned the golden arches outside of McDonald's.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so
because
strange.
it's like they didn't want kids like being like, hey, well, how come
being overly stimulated with all this bullshit.
You know, being like, hey, and this is the story how me and your father fell up 300 meters away. There's golden arches. 300.
Speaking of like hyper-capitalism, have you seen SpaceX's decision around like doing like the billboards in space with satellites?
Oh yeah, that's mental.
My
That's going to be a huge
dude.
issue because
could you imagine looking up at like you're looking at Jupiter like
Oh,
through a
yeah, it's
telescope
crazy,
and
but-
you see like a Pepsi ad.
yeah, but the reality is that's
Flying
actually
through.
it's very hard with space. That's not their space. So anything outside of Earth is considered the common heritage of mankind.
Yeah.
So it creates a very interesting legal dilemma about who owns what. So this is something that gets my fucking international relations dick hard.
Yeah.
Anything outside of Earth comes under the new burgeoning field of space law, right? Now, because no one can currently go and travel very easily, then it's all up for grabs hypothetically. So because no one actually has a clear advantage and because it's all hypothetical, everyone's playing fair. Because everyone's on the same forefront. The same thing happened with cybersecurity. So cybersecurity in the 80s, when people were like, I'm a hacker, we didn't really have anything. So everyone kind of was like, hey, what's some fair laws? I have no vested interest in this because it's not a big thing. So whatever laws we make are going to be a lot fairer than if I have $100 worth of chips in this. So it's the same thing with space law now. Everyone's kind of coming to the table and being like, okay, so it's common heritage, which means we share it and blah, blah, blah. And whereas if everyone was already in space, they would be trying to carve their own part of it. So it's going to be a lot fairer system. But the interesting thing is if everything outside of the Earth is common heritage, who do you pay taxes to?
Yeah, it's a great question, isn't it?
So here's the thing. There is
The aliens.
trillions, quadrillions of dollars worth of resources in asteroids, right? And asteroid mining is going to be the next big thing because we have a limited amount of precious metals. The only deposits we have on Earth are because asteroids hit us.
Which is what gives precious metals their value, right? Is their scarcity.
I mean, stuff like lithium and anything platinum is massive, especially for the new components that we're going to need to go space. So then we want more space. You need more asteroids.
Yeah.
To quote a FIFO worker, give me that rock. I mean, space rock. I'm so sorry. No,
Space rock.
No, not the other one.
Yeah, and even like minerals like gold.
Yeah.
And all that sort of thing. Yeah.
So the interesting thing
completely
is,
abundant in
who
space.
do you pay tax to? And so people are like, well, if it's all of ours, you shouldn't pay it to a single country. And I'm here being like, well, this is amazing because this may create the groundwork to be able to
Unite,
but also address the inequalities created from colonialism, which was the initial theft. Like you have a country, I go in, I steal a bunch of stuff from you for generations, and then you guys, a couple of centuries later, have somewhat an economy and say, fuck off. And then we go, oh, we lost World War II, so we better, like, you know, oh, you can have this one back. Or we want to look good because human rights are like a thing now. But it created all these huge systemic problems that we're still seeing today. So how do we balance that out? Well, if all of a sudden all this money is coming in and it's being taxed towards the common heritage and going to everyone, we could potentially use that to address and not fix, because you can't go back and fix that, but to now redistribute and
a bit of wealth to people.
And fix the systemic problems that were created from colonialism, which is wild. So all these, there's an idea in economics of comparative advantage. Like if you can produce two goods, you can produce 5 apples and 10 coconuts or whatever. You don't produce as much as you can of both. You produce the one you can produce most of, and then the other person, your partner, produces the thing they're best at, and you end up with more collectively than if you try to pursue two things separately. Comparative advantage, great. Means everyone kind of is doing what they're doing best. But what happens if the thing you're producing sells for 10 times as much as the thing they're producing? So what happens if the low-skilled labor and the resources coming out of Mexico that get sold to America to produce their high-end electronics that get sold for thousands of dollars, the comparative advantage there isn't fair. Mexico and America are doing the same amount of work, but their products are getting sold for $1,000 and Mexico's products are getting sold for 10 to America. And then America now has an interest in keeping Mexico poor because they don't want someone to start doing what they do well, because then they have more competition. So comparative advantage, if you're on the low end of things, doesn't work for you. So how do we create that? And if you all of a sudden have money coming in from space,
that's an incredibly insightful topic that I haven't even given any thought to. Like what will actually happen when, like, say for instance, once we start like colonizing Mars, which is sort of like an inevitability. Like how do you implement the same
so we're going to have
all that sort of thing that we already have.
In a century, there's very likely given that it was 60 years from the first Wright brothers thing to getting a man on the moon, it's likely we'll have a person born on the moon. So we'll have our first extraterrestrial citizen.
That's fucking crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
Like, how do you where do you identify as?
Then someone was saying like, because if we get an American, Australia, will never have a baby on the moon or Mars, that is an extraterrestrial citizen. Does it have, and this is the legal framework,
rights?
Does it have the same rights as human when we talk about human rights? Because we talk about Earth humans, not Mars. Like and to us, it's simple to be like, well, no, you're human, you're fine, blah, blah.
But the actual legal framework,
doesn't, so that's kind of a terrifying concept. But also, as far as things in the sky, it's why drones are fucking freaking everyone out. Like you have to be 30, if you're more than 30 feet in the air or whatever,
crazy it's regulated. Crazy regulated.
And look, I get it, because we've tried to do drone shots for our stuff, and thank God it's regulated, because you see some people.
This is like you get a drone fly up a kilometer in the air and accidentally hit an aircraft.
Yeah. Like that shit, it's wild, man. Like, and it's the likelihood of that happening is 1 in a million, unless a million people have drones.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is probably going to be, unless you have Amazon, delivering packages with drones, then all of a sudden it's going to be an issue. But as for Elon Musk putting stuff in the sky, I think that's a dick move.
Oh, for sure. Like,
what are you going to take fire next? You can't take the sky from people. You fucking super villain.
Watch them do it.
I bet Elon Musk is going to be like, oh, I'm going to, it's called a shrink ray. I'm going to steal the Eiffel Tower. It's like, you suck.
Going to steal the moon.
Yeah, it's just like, Elon, you're not even trying anymore, okay?
Could you search it up for us,
Just take your 16-year-old wife.
Yeah, SpaceX.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. One side of me says like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. We can like now do advertising in space. But my other side is just
I know, but isn't it wild that the first thing was like advertising? It's like, hey, you also could have done free education to everyone.
Art.
You could have done art. You could have been like, hey, on Tonight, like, okay, let's say you created a way that kids could like learn in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Because if I put something a couple of kilometers in the sky, then we can see it, but also probably kids in Geraldton can see it. Yeah. You could have the whole of the country learning or experience something at the same time, which would be phenomenal. But instead, he's like, no, you know what, you need Pepsi.
Coca-Cola. Yeah. You can pay with Dogecoin, ladies and gentlemen. So if there's any business owners out there, you can...
pitch it to Cuck Tank with you.
I really don't see the point with buying with cryptocurrency. Like, why?
Well, why not?
Because don't you want to have that story where you're like, I bought a pizza for it 10 years ago and I didn't realize that now I would have been a millionaire. I
shouldn't have bought that pizza.
Yeah, don't you want to be that guy who sold all his Apple stock for like $20?
Exactly.
And now it's like, you would have had $100 million.
Well, yeah, there's like a funny story with Bitcoin. Like some dude spent like 1,000 Bitcoin on a pizza.
Yeah.
And now he's just
definitely
like, why?
What the fuck? Yeah, but here's the thing: like, you can't beat yourself up with that because you made the decision that made sense at the time.
Exactly.
Who are you to know? There's some guy out there who's lost the code to his wallet, his Bitcoin wallet, and once you
I saw that actually.
Yeah, and we're talking OG
hundreds of millions of dollars.
coins. Yeah, and he's just kind of stuck. So, I mean, I guess every day he's just like, Peter Jones 1, Peter Jones 2. And it's just like, no, mate. Wouldn't it suck if it was like one of his best friends, his best friend died, and then one day he's like on his deathbed and he's like 89. He's like, let me try Gay Balls 1. And it goes straight through. Yes! And he gets so hard, the last of his blood, and he dies.
That would suck. How long have we been going for, Leo?
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half. All right.
Oh, shit, fun. All right, you want to wrap up with some comedy stuff?
Pitch.
All right, cool. So I run one of Perth's best underground comedy clubs at the Record Bar. We had a phenomenal season. They let me program it, and we're coming back for 2022 at Fringe for the whole month. I've doubled the number of individual sessions. We have huge acts. Rory Lowe, Matt Storer, Tor Snyder, fucking massive acts. Outside of that, I run a monthly comedy club at the same venue, Record Bar Underground, first Friday of the month. It keeps selling out, so get your tickets soon. You can get them off Megatix or on the door if you want to risk it. Then there's the big one, the talk show, Ebsworth Tonight, September 2. Show starts 7:30. You can get tickets from Megatix or on the door, but it is going to sell out. We have, I was about to say, oh my God. Sorry, I can't say it's a secret special guest because this guy has an embargo on because we're not allowed to say that he's in the state. So, I was so close. Yeah. Oh my God. But we have Laura Davis, who's a phenomenal comic. You see her on the Melbourne Comedy Gala, and from Sean McCullers Madness Hotel. We have Perth soul icon Quincy. We have all the OG crew. Sam's going to be doing it. Got a new Tall and Order, a bunch of new sketches. We're doing Meth Kitchen Rules. It's going to be so fun. And we have some big producers coming down. So the more people in the crowd, the more chance that this could be on TV instead of The Block.
Beautiful. We'll put links to everything in the description if anybody wants to buy tickets and do that sort of thing. But yeah, definitely check out Colin Ebsworth, guys. Very funny character.
Thanks so much for coming and for having me. This is wild.
No worries, dude. Thanks for coming in.